New figures reveal that a new migrant has arrived in Australia every single minute of every single day since the start of the year. Joining me now on the panel to discuss this is Adoni Media's Leisa Goddard and LNP MP Henry Pike. Guys, thanks so much for coming on here to the program tonight. Leisa, let's start with you. So much, and I got to say, you know, I'm a migrant myself, so we love the migration, we love the migrants, everything that they bring here. But what do we have to say, though, about labor cutting back to sustainable levels? They're not making this happy, are they?
Well, they're certainly not hitting sustainable levels. If you ask the people who are struggling with the housing crisis, you know, the rent prices, the cost of living crisis, they wouldn't be saying this is a sustainable level at all. But what they have done, James, if you go into the figures, is they've actually set a record. So they've broken the record for the numbers between January to May. So it's the highest 5-month period yet. So they must get a gong for that somewhere. But look, I sat through the LNP budget and reply dinner, and I listened to Peter Dutton talk about the very issue of immigration and what it means to the average Australian who is at the cash register trying to pay for their groceries, trying to find a home, trying to find a rental property for family. And he has managed to shape this whole immigration debate through that sort of cost of living lens. So I think when you look at these figures now, all it does is support what he's saying.
Yeah, and Henry, I want to talk about this, the other side of the equation, too, because, you know, Peter Dutton and the coalition, they get blamed and they say, oh, you know, you're blaming migrants for all of the troubles and everything like that. But there's another side to this equation, because if we keep holding out Australia as this destination for people to come to work and to study, you know, because we need that to bolster the GDP to keep us out of a real recession when we're in a technical one on per capita terms, isn't it also really quite cruel to people to, at this point, when we are in a housing crisis, say, hey, you know, come on in, everything's fine, the water's fine, you know, we got plenty of room for you here in Australia. I mean, it's not just about, it's not about blaming migrants, it's also about, you know, giving people false hope and selling them a pup.
You're absolutely right, James. It's about fairness. It's about trying to grow Australia in a sustainable way. You mentioned that we've had a migrant a minute this year. We're certainly not building a house a minute, I can tell you that. Certainly not in my neck of the woods. We are having, in fact, record low levels of home construction in this country, and particularly in corners of this country where we actually need a lot of home development and home growth. And if we can't, as a country, house these people, if we can't deliver the infrastructure that they need in order to get the jobs that they need and be able to move around the cities that they're moving to, you know, why it just makes no sense that we're allowing migration to get out of hand at this level. And it's not about the migrants. We are a migrant country. We do want their contribution, but we've got to do it in a way that's responsible and that's fair to our existing residents.
Well, exactly right. Now, I want to move on here to somebody who I know that everybody out there watching this program absolutely loves when this guy's name gets mentioned. Matt Keane, he's the new climate czar or climate commissioner or whatever his, and he may have left the New South Wales Liberal government, but he sounded every bit the politician at his first public speech as the next Climate Authority chair yesterday, calling on the clean energy industry to, quote, put your mouth where your money is. The facts, the benefits, and the positive outcomes of renewable energy are roaring outside. Leisa, I'll tell you this much, you know, they may be roaring outside, but inside my house, when we get these letters saying, hey, you know, your power bill's going up, your gas bill's going up, your energy bill's going up, and at the same time they're revving up the renewables, and that's the cause of it, I'm roaring on the inside. What do we make of Matt Keane telling us this here?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, James. He may have sounded like a politician because, let's see, he doesn't actually finish his job as a politician until August, does he? So that would mean that he is still on the payroll. So perhaps, you know, he is sounding, and a Liberal, representing, you know, a Liberal government as well. So I think there's some serious questions to be asked about that alone. But look, you're right. He's up there talking about energy and this renewable dream. I sat today through the Queensland Media Club lunch, and we had our Energy Minister here, in Queensland. Talking along very similar lines to Matt Keane, renewables were the way of the future. There's no problem, I don't think, in anyone in this country who is backing renewable energies in having a voice that is being heard extremely loudly. It's people on the other end who are saying, look, we do need coal, we do need gas. They're the voices that are being silenced because, dare you say we actually need these fossil fuels. And certainly today at the luncheon that I was at, the message was, Miles government gets back in Queensland, it will be a hard no to nuclear. They will push back if Peter Dutton does manage to win government. The Miles government will push back against any nuclear in this state, at least. And it's renewables all the way ahead here.
Well, Henry, what do you make of this? It's like a religious dogma. I mean, the people who are always saying, follow the science, they've got the yard sign saying, in this house we believe in science. But at the same time, when there's something that's scientific and works, they seem to be absolutely terrified of it. How come?
It's a very good question. It's probably the great question of our age. I'm confused by Matt Keane's view that that if we, he says we're not hearing enough from the clean energy industry. I think that's all we've heard for the last 10 years, and it's all our kids are being taught in their schools, and it's all really we hear throughout the mainstream media. I just can't really understand his argument here. This has become an article of faith for a lot of people, and we don't really see a lot of evidence involved in what they put forward now. It's just statements of faith, and I think it's actually time for people to be speaking up on behalf of the energy consumers of Australia to say, hey, enough's enough. Let's pursue a realistic energy policy here, which has a good mix of different uses, stuff that's reliable and stuff that's affordable.
Liz, let me ask you about this. I want to pick up on that point that Henry just made there. It's about sort of, it seems to be like where we are now with this debate. It's about being seen to be doing something rather than actually doing something. And is it sort of that renewables just have a virtuous tinge about them, and that's why the politicians love it?
Well, it's interesting you raise that. So I was talking to somebody ahead of an event last week, and one of the questions that they were expecting to hear was, for all of the people that work across the resource sector, basically, is there some sort of sense of shame, or do they not want to admit that they're working in the resource sector, which right now is keeping the lights on in this studio, in the homes where they're watching us as well. And the point was made that 1 in 4 jobs in Queensland comes from or relies on the resource sector alone. They need to go out there and proudly say that we are working in the resource sector, and let's look at the tables at all of these functions that the politicians and the various stakeholder groups all sit around, and explain to them the bottle that your wine is sitting in relies on the resource sector. The food that you're eating relies on the resource sector. Without gas, you haven't got fertiliser, you don't have a food bowl. The lights that are on, the car that you came in, the plane that you flew in, I think that bring it back to the basics and explain to people why it's so critical. I think that's what's missing in this.
And
perhaps
Henry,
that's the voice that needs to be out there.
And just very quickly, because only a second, your constituents, what are they saying? Are people saying that they want more renewables or that they want reliability?
My constituents want reliability, but most importantly, they want affordability as well. And they can see the path that's renewables are taking us down. They appreciate the little rebates they're getting here and there as people head towards elections, but they understand where this is going and they want a change of direction.
Fair enough. Very well said. Queensland LNP MP Henry Pike, Leisa Goddard, thank you so much for joining me here tonight on Paul Murray Live.